Hello, I am Nicolina Weather, and I help purpose-driven entrepreneurs and passionate creative souls to just bring their gifts into the world and create the impact they desire. And as some of you might already know from following me on Instagram or Facebook, I sometimes share little videos with quite practical tools usually around how you can just make that process easier, the process of doing your passionate work or the meaningful work you want to do. And I'm just decided to want to do more on YouTube so they don't disappear after 24 hours. Today I want to speak about focus and how that helps you to, get more done more easily and better work as well. So it's part of productivity, and of course, even if you just pick out focus, it's still a huge topic. So I thought for today, okay, let's talk about distraction-free working, clutter maybe also, and mindfulness. So mostly it's about distraction-free working, but clutter and mindfulness, they kind of, for me, play into that. And so the biggest issue, of course, is distractions in terms of, quite technical distractions or physical distractions or people. So, for example, I think we all know, phones or laptops can be hugely distracting if they're not set up in a way that helps us to stay focused on the task. And so, for example, making sure you don't have any audio notifications or nothing on your screen, or some people I like to use apps that limit when they can use, social media apps or other programs. I feel like they're not helpful for their work, to make sure basically that they can stay focused. So for me, for example, I have a lot of apps I need to swipe a couple of times before I actually get to them, to not be so tempted to just check my phone when it's not needed. So the whole point, like I said, for focused work is, of course, so that the longer you can really engage in one task, in one project, or one task basically, not only will you get more done, but also your mind is more cooperative. It feels fresher, and it can more easily go more deeply into the subject. So that's why, for example, quality often very much depends on undistracted work, unless maybe you primary work is responding to outside stimuli, which there are jobs in which that is the case, but especially if you're a creative person or an entrepreneur. But I'm just thinking, especially creative people who produce the classic creative work of writing novels or painting pictures or producing videos or something. Generally, it's good if we have undisturbed times. The only exception can be that distractions can actually bring new ideas, which again, for creative work or also innovation, can be helpful if you get unexpected outside ideas. But still, too many of them are distracting. And again, most creative people I know, they literally crave to have this undisturbed time where they can completely submerge themselves into their art form and really also often, bring out what's inside of them. Often, like with creative work, that's what we want to do, is to, really connect with which our soul, maybe some people would say, or what's really moving us inside of us, and bring that onto the paper, or at least into the code or whatever you're doing. And so, like I said, the first practical thing is to check your electronic devices for any notifications, be it auditory or visual, that can pop up and just distract you out of what you do. So again, some people literally like to switch things to flight mode, which I think is a great idea. If you know, okay, for the next hour or 2 hours or 5 hours, I want to just focus on that. Yeah, can you just switch them off? Do you actually need your devices? Can you, like I said, at least, make it more difficult to get to the distracting things? This kind of also already leads to clutter, because of course clutter, no matter if it's physically or electronically, means that when we notice it, there's always a part of our attention which goes towards that cluttery thing, that piece of paper which is lying there and is not relevant to what we're doing, or the tab that is open because of something else we were working on, and we don't have our full attention in the moment with what we're working on right now. So that's why, again, clutter, for example, is not helpful at all. And I think, again, most people who feel like they're good with the productivity often arrange themselves or their spaces so that then their days in a way that they make sure that at the end of the day they clear out anything that's not relevant, so they can start fresh during the day. But I would also encourage you, for example, whenever you start a new task, especially if it's a longer thing where you know you want to submerge yourself into, just make sure you know, also physically get rid of all the distractions and all the clutter. And the same on your, if you have to use electronic devices, can you make sure you're only using the apps you really need? Research, I find, is always can be a bit tricky. Like if you know you will need to find information while you're working, because then you're on Google and then, you know, you end up from one website going to the next. It's, again, is it something, how can you limit yourself around there? So for myself, of course, oh my God, I can get lost in looking through all tabs and, you know, different pages of Google. But generally, for example, then if I know I don't have or don't want to take the time for that, can I make sure that I'm allowed to look at the first 3 entries? And again, maybe you use a little gentle timer at that moment to time your research, maybe to only 10 minutes or whatever is suitable for you. If you have to, if you can avoid it at all, even better. Or go back to old school, you know, encyclopedias or something. Sometimes I think this is a great way of having this undistracted time. The other thing to watch out for in terms of distractions, for me at least, are people. Like, not only because they send messages and phone calls, but also they might walk into your space or they just talk loudly. So again, right now I think most of us were working from home, which can come with its own challenges, especially if you have little kids, which kind of want your attention the whole time and you want to focus on your work. Can you take your laptop to a room and say, okay, now this is, you know, mommy's or daddy's time, and then like hopefully you're 2, or at least you have maybe an older sibling, which in that moment can, at least for a while, take care of that person. If they're still at that age. I know that for people who have very small children right now, it can be quite challenging. Even though I think most of them, they have found ways. Usually, like, best, yeah, if there was an other person that was also involved in the caretaking. But let's imagine, you know, also because of course circumstances are going to change again, or because you know, in general, do you have a space where you can close the door so no one can just walk in and want something from you? Or at least like a dedicated corner, and you put like a Spanish wall around you, whatever it is, you know, you need to do to make sure like there's a physical distance between and anything else that's physically coming from the outside. So I know a lot of people, you know, love open plan office spaces because it helps the communication and collaboration and all that good stuff and exchange of ideas, which is super important and vital, and I get it. I'm not a fan of them because I am highly successful, what's the word? Influenced by noises. When other people, like I've had it once, a situation where it wasn't even open plan. It was, I don't know how many people were in that space, 5, 10 or something, 10 people in one room. And for me, oh my God, it was so hard to get any work done because I'm the type of person, I've been like that my whole life. I remember even during high school, like I would always know what's going around me, who was cheating during a test, who went to the toilet when. It's just the way my brain is wired. So for me, you know, being in an office where other people are talking for something that's not relevant to me, or making jokes, or, you know, even just walking in and out is enough to distract me from what I'm trying to do. And I know a lot of people are the same. And if that's you, yeah, do make sure that you maybe address that at your work, because I know some people are different. Some people also thrive with it, and also depending on your work, it can be that, like I said, like the collaboration part of having a shared space can be really helpful, but especially if there are no clear boundaries about what is okay to say or what isn't, or like how are we behaving around each other, then it can also become a real problem. And so that's just something to keep in mind. If like I said, for most people, I guess that's not right now, but generally to have in mind, like, do you need more of your own space? And again, the creatives amongst my fans, or the ones I know some of them, their biggest dream is to completely, you know, lose all outside distractions and only work in their own space and for hours and days and get lost in there. Well, I'm not sure if I agree with the getting lost part, but in terms of why it can be so important if you want to produce deep work, definitely, do maybe think about that. So the last thing I wanted to touch on is mindfulness, just because in my own experience, it can be so helpful when you to help you with noticing where your attention goes for foremost. Because what mindfulness does, of course, like if you really practice is, and not just when you sit in meditation, but for example, through your whole day, is being aware of where is your attention and are you present or not. And with that, it's much easier to notice that you're being distracted. So for me, for example, these apps that block certain other apps or programs when I've been on them for too long, or even just track my time on apps. I just haven't really found it that helpful to rely on technology to help me not being distracted, for example, on my phone or on the laptop. Other than, like I said, I'm very boundaried when it comes to notifications. Like, there's nothing that comes on my home screen, and there's no app is allowed to use a sound other than my phone calls. And even there, I have rules when and which ones sometimes can get through. And I think actually I'm actually using a mindfulness spell. It's a bit like the Pomodoro technique, just to remind myself every half an hour that the half an hour had passed, and to just check in if I'm actually doing what I want to be doing. Otherwise, like I said, I'm very boundaried. I don't use apps to kind of stop me engaging in certain things, because normally I can rely on my mindfulness to notice, am I ending up scrolling through social media? Am I getting, lost, or like starting to watch videos or read something when that's not what I want to do? I'm not saying I don't do it, but I'm quite, like I said, I don't even want to say lucky, because I know it is because of my background in mindfulness that I still have a certain level of awareness around when it happens. And it's more, then of course is this next step is deciding if I want to stick with it or not, which I guess the app would do for you if it just shuts it down, and I still need that little bit of mental effort to switch myself out of it when I do it. So maybe actually maybe after this video I will go back to it. I have tried it in the past and I just didn't find it as helpful. But that's why, yeah, mindfulness, I just think it's a great tool for focused work. Just this constant practicing. And like I said, the way I have done it in the past was really, eating mindfully, going to the toilet mindfully, making your bed mindfully, having a shower mindfully, and like in any situation. And that's where you really train to always pay attention where your attention is going, and not just when you're watching your breath or something. Even that you can do that in every moment. So for today, what are your takeaways? Your takeaways is, do have a check around your technical devices and how many notifications are going through that you don't really need, or at least are there, times where you can switch to silent or flight mode. And so limiting the amount of notifications you get. Second step is there, physically, like I said, right now, I guess most of us, we're still in different circumstances than usual, but is there a way of, keeping physical stimulation, as in other people or even just outside noises or anything like that, out to not be disturbed? And do you need to get creative around, like I said, is it just a room with a door you can use or on your own, or do you need to get a bit more creative around that? Thirdly is look at clutter, like physical clutter, like is there lots, isn't there? Do you have a good routine of keeping it at bay, or do you need to develop one? Like I said, also, tabs and documents, like a cluttered desktop, for example, is also never nice. It's just such a nice feeling when you look at your desktop and there's really just the essentials, and you can just start fresh, and you're not, again, it's exactly the same as if there's a stack of paper or magazines or whatever on your desk, or old, cups or whatever. It's just every time you see something, your attention goes to it, even if it's just for a fraction of a second and happens subconsciously. It's just taking away from what you're really wanting to focus on. Like always, love to hear how you're getting on with this and what you find particularly helpful or not helpful at all, or what I haven't mentioned and you're using or whatever. Just leave it in the comments or send me a message. And I will speak to you very soon again. Bye.